Happy 2026, everyone. The Indiana General Assembly is back in session. We'll bring you up to speed on the bills and issues being debated at the Statehouse. Everything from who's eligible for SNAP benefits, to utility costs, to declaring an official state of Indiana sandwich. It's your chance to talk directly to your elected representatives right now on Prime Time. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Prime Time. I'm your host, Ed Leon. The Indiana Legislature is back in session this week, addressing the most pressing policy issues in our state. In this short session, the Republican supermajority is focused on issues such as deregulation, property tax relief, and housing affordability, while Democrats unveiled what they're calling a working Hoosiers agenda to address the high cost of living. Here to give us their insights and to speak to you about their legislative priorities are from Senate District 19, the Republican Majority Caucus Chair, Senator Travis Holdman, and from House District 82, representing Fort Wayne, Democrat Representative Kyle Miller. Gentlemen, welcome to Prime Time.
Thanks for having us.
The Senate Republicans have prioritized public safety, fiscal responsibility, and government reform, and among that is SB 1. Travis, let's start with you. Talk to me about SB 1. What does it do? It seems to be tightening the reins on SNAP benefits.
Well, I think we're just trying to reset the clock. It just seems like everything started to ran away during COVID, and we had people that became eligible that if they were ineligible, we couldn't remove them from the rolls. They stayed on Medicaid, stayed on SNAP benefits. And it's just time to get the House back in order, we feel. And we think with that, it comes a responsibility from a taxpayer standpoint, fiscal responsibility to make sure that we're not wasting dollars. And we certainly feel for those folks who are in need, and we want to make sure that the folks who are in need are getting the help that they do need and are able to sustain their daily life. But at the same time, if they're able to work and they don't qualify otherwise because of income or resources, they need to be taken off of the rolls. Right.
Kyle, you're nodding. Have we found that there's an amount of fraud in the system?
You know, I don't know if we've found many instances of fraud. I'm sure there are some, but I think that what we do have is we have a contingent of people that are what we call working poor, people that are trying to do the right things, you know, pulling themselves up by their bootstraps, working long hours, sometimes multiple jobs. And as we look at things we should be looking at wasteful spending where it is, and people that are on the system that shouldn't be, we do need to be very careful about those people that are doing everything we're asking of them and still not able to make ends meet.
Right. On the Democratic side, affordability is a big buzzword, and that gets, you know, these are people who are having a hard time affording their lives. Absolutely. What's being done or what's being proposed in the areas of affordability?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there are many areas in our state that we can look at. One of the biggest and sort of most immediate relief that we can give to Hoosiers is eliminating the sales tax on utility bills, a way to bring down costs immediately as we're continuing to look at regulating utility and making sure that people are able to afford to heat and cool their home and get the electricity when they need. I think childcare is another affordability point that we can look at. Right. You know, I say it sounds kind of funny, but we have parents that it is too expensive for them to work. Right. And so I think we need to continue looking at the ways that we can bring down the cost of childcare and also the accessibility of childcare. And so we were disappointed over the summer to hear that FSSA had cut the vouchers for childcare. So, you know, as our revenues start to look rosier and rosier, and we start to see that, you know, at the end of session last year, at the end of the budget session, we heard we were $2.4 billion in the hole, and I don't think we're quite that far. And so as we start to reevaluate our funds, I'm hoping we can look further into that.
I read that the Republican majority has said that they do not want to really reopen the budget. Is that correct, Senator?
That's right. last April 15th, we had the revenue forecast, and it showed that we would just see about 0.3% growth in the second year of the biennium. And that's the year coming up, starting this July of 26 would be the second year beginning. So we're very cautious about opening the budget back up. We've had better than expected revenue reports month by month since July.
They've just reforecasted, right?
Yes.
Are we going to end up with the biennium with like 1.5 billion over
Well, it's
in surplus?
I think it was closer to 900 million. And those are not many days in the state budget for that amount. But we just need to see things level off a little bit before we take the step to refund programs that we've had. I've been a big proponent of child care, and I really hated to see what happened to the child care program with CCDF funding coming in from the feds as well. But the governor required 5% cut in all agencies' budgets except DOC and Department of Corrections and DCS, Department of Child Services. And then there's a 5% holdback too, so it's really a 10% holdback from all of the appropriations that were made a year and a half ago. So we'll see how things go, and I think things will start to look better because things are looking up. We're doing better.
But it seems like both sides of the aisle are bringing up child care, for example, in this session. What are some of the proposals coming from each of your camps?
I mean, I've got a bill that I filed this year that would make child care free for every Hoosier child. I think it's time that we at least examine that, take a look at it, how much it's going to cost, and perhaps in the next budget we can look at putting money into the budget for that. So, I think that ultimately it becomes an economic issue. Child care does. We have parents that are pulling themselves out of the workforce, affecting our local small businesses, our large businesses, because child care is unaffordable and unattainable. And so those are ways that we can.
There's one proposal that intends to have the parents pay for some of it, have the state pay for some of it, and have the schools or the employers pay for some of it. Does that seem viable? It seems like there's sort of agreement in both camps on this, and it seems.
I think we'll get to a spot where we can work things out between the employers, the government, and the parents. Parents just need help because it's very expensive. Child care is very expensive. But we lost so many churches during COVID due to the pandemic that were doing daycare programs for folks, and they came to a halt because of COVID, and they never picked that back up again. And I think anything we can do to help our not-for-profits utilize that model, and then schools as well. Most schools have ample room for daycare programs at schools, but they're going to want to be paid for it.
Right.
So that's the problem.
I want to remind our viewers that we are live, and this is your chance to connect with your legislators. It's your direct connection, and our phone line is open right now. The number is 260-969-2720, and we have a brand new way for you to connect tonight via text. So just text your question or comment to 260-969-2730. So phone is 2720, text is 2730, 969-2730 to text us your questions or comments. Let's talk a little bit about utilities. That's another big kitchen table issue. Seems like you mentioned getting rid of the tax. That's one approach. Is there another approach that's being considered?
Well, I think just looking at trying to reform the system and how the rates are implemented and approved by the IURC on a regular basis. I had an amendment to Senate Bill 212, which was one of the coupling bills on the Internal Revenue Code that Senator Codora offered. And it would have suspended the sales tax on utilities for all customers. That had about $1 billion price tag to it. And in this day and age with the budget and where we are with the budget right now, we can't afford $1 billion hit to the state budget. because we can't print money like the federal government does.
We have a text on the line. It's about carbon capture, and I'd like to read it for you. I would like to know where they stand on carbon capture and regulations to rein these companies in, like POET in Wabash, Indiana. Any comment on that question, carbon capture?
I have to be honest. I represent downtown Fort Wayne, so it's not an issue that's come up very often for me, and I have to kind of feign ignorance on it. I don't know too much about it, and I have a colleague in the House down from Terre Haute that we've worked close with, and she's caught some flack for it. She's got people that are okay with it, other people that don't want it in their community. So.
Right. There's also, I've heard talk of trying to kind of regulate who can give carbon capture credits and maybe kind of restricting local municipalities from doing that and having the state keep a little tighter hand on that. The other issue that I hear coming from both sides of the aisle is housing affordability, and that's another one that really hits close to home to our viewers and to all Hoosiers. What are some of the approaches being taken by the Republican caucus?
Well, there'll be a bill we'll hear on Tuesday that's included in Senator Rogers' legislation that talks about housing credits and trying to spur the housing industry on. And also the first-time homebuyer credit as well. We're taking a look at doing something for first-time homebuyers.
How would that work?
Well, I don't know all the details, but you had to be a first-time homebuyer in Indiana, and you had to sign that this was the first home that you had ever owned in the state. And I think that's a 10-year run-up that you basically are exempt from property tax for 10 years. If that's the case.
That's a considerable benefit.
That'd be a huge help for folks.
Fantastic benefit. How about on the Democratic side for housing affordability?
Yeah, I think we obviously recognize it as a huge issue, and would agree with the Senate too that we should be doing more to incentivize first-time home buyers to be able to buy homes. Some ideas that have been floated are obviously a tax credit for first-time home buyers, allowing home buyers to save in special savings accounts for their first homes. And so I think that we've heard loud and clear that not only is first-time home ownership becoming more and more unattainable, but the supply of housing it too is a major issue.
So I hear affordability issues are incredibly important. Those are budget related, right? But we're not opening the budget. So is there a constriction there? Is there a natural? Are we bound for failure in this session to not get anything accomplished?
No, I don't think so. I think it just provides the soil for new ideas to come forward, and even in some cases to implement new programs, but have those implementation dates be past the next budget cycle so we can see if we can actually afford them. But if we can get some programs on the books and obligate ourselves to do that, I think it would speak well to us and to the taxpayer as well and to the citizens of the state of Indiana.
Terrific. Here's another text. This one's related to insurance and the rising cost of insurance. Yeah, that's another one. My husband's health insurance went up by $200 a month this year, just for himself. What are some of the ways that our state legislators can help with the rising health care costs that are pricing Hoosiers out of keeping themselves healthy?
Yeah, we've tried to do quite a bit over the last couple of years on healthcare affordability, bringing down costs, some transparency issues with hospital billing. I think I personally think it's high time that we look at insurance companies and what they are providing, what they aren't providing, and kind of dig into whether we're getting a good deal out of that insurance model. But I think, again, this is a huge issue, especially now with the federal government, eliminating the subsidies, possibly eliminating the subsidies, voting to bring them back, but not passing the Senate. So it's definitely something we need to continue taking a look at as a state.
We passed legislation last session, Senate Bill 2, which basically said to our big 6 not-for-profit hospitals, you get your prices down within the next 3 years to a new standard based upon Medicare standard. And if you don't, you run the risk of losing your not-for-profit status. And so I think we've applied enough pressure on the hospitals. And what happens to the hospitals will happen to the doctors and the nurses and everybody else in the stream of medical care.
So does that trickle down savings, I guess is a way to phrase it, is it working? Because people seem to be sensing that those costs keep going up and they're not coming down.
Well, we just passed the legislation, it just went into effect July 1st of this past year or so, a little more than 6 months ago. But I think Representative Miller has a point that we've not really got into the insurance industry side of things.
Right.
And I think that's next on the list of things that we've got to take a look at to make sure they're fair and equitable to people.
I think as an example, and I won't name names, but we've heard of a hospital and an insurer coming to an agreement and saving the insurer quite a bit of money, almost $1 billion, and yet we didn't see those insurers' premiums decrease. And so, somebody got those savings,
right?
And I think we're all in agreement that's something that we need to take a look at and make sure that those cost savings that are being negotiated between the hospitals, providers,
they have to flow back to the
absolutely.
That's right.
The people.
Consumer.
Yep.
Right. Senator, any legislative priorities that you're really trying to move forward in this session?
Well, I've been tasked with the coupling and decoupling with the federal revenue code, and some things we can afford to do and some things we cannot afford to do because the federal government can print money, as I mentioned earlier. If we do everything that the feds have done to fall in line with them, it'll impact the budget in a huge way. We're looking at a number of things in 2 bills and 2 Department of Revenue bills that I'm authoring. One that we just passed out of committee yesterday had to do with the bonus depreciation on business real estate. Had we not decoupled with the federal revenue code on that particular item, it would have cost us about $200 million over the next 3 years. And we just can't afford to take that kind of a hit because the federal government does it. We just can't do it. And there's such a difference between the rate, the tax rate at the federal level and the state level as well. We just moved down to 3%. We're going to be at 2.9% next year in the individual income tax rate. And so, and we're taking measures to try to push that even further lower on the scale if we can.
Representative Miller, how about you? Anything that you're pushing?
I will be honest. This is such a short session with us being in December, which is unusual for us. Leadership wants us to shorten the session, so we really will only be in for about 8 weeks, and so it's hard to really get a read on things that we can focus on, especially this early in such a short session.
Right.
I sit on the Public Policy Committee in the House, which deals with things like gaming and alcohol, and so these first couple of weeks we've talked a lot about gaming, not only about the potential casino coming to Fort Wayne, but also iGaming and whether it's good public policy to legalize, slots on your phone, poker on your phone, and things like that. We've got companies that are already here doing that, doing it in a legal gray area.
Right.
And so having to sort of deal with that and have an iGaming talk at the same time has been kind of interesting.
Okay, well, let's talk about that a little bit because there's also a proposal that we make the lottery available on your phone, internet. Thoughts on that? On whether that's a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, typically and historically, I have voted against every expansion of gaming, the bill that's ever been on the board for the last 17 years. I just think there's better ways for us to honestly raise revenue in the state of Indiana through economic development and lowering taxes rather than try to resort to other ways, what we call sin taxes, through gaming and casinos and everything of that nature.
Right. I want to talk to you about a bill that's getting a lot of attention, but we have Greg, who called in and wants us to relay this question, does the Department of Motor Vehicles share or sell our information? Are you aware of that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that you're aware of.
I'm not aware of that either. I think we discussed that maybe last session, and they were found that they were not doing that, or we put language in place that that made sure they were not doing that.
If there's any evidence of that happening, you need to call Representative Miller or myself so we can check into it.
Sure, sure. All right. I hope you got your answer there, Gary. All right, let's talk about SB 11, which is this bill that is authorizing death by firing squad for inmates on death row. Is that what are your thoughts on that? It seems to come out of left field that this is such a something that we've left behind in our past, but all of a sudden this comes back. Why?
You want to take it?
Go ahead.
I do think we need to look at the way that we are doing lethal injections and executions in Indiana. The cost has risen and keeps going up and up and up. I tend to be against any form of the death penalty. And with my kids, it's a controversial issue, but we don't spank our kids. We've never spanked our kids because there was something inherently wrong to my wife and I about spanking the kids to tell them not to hit. And so I feel very much the same and respect that there are many ways of thinking about it, but feel very much the same way about the death penalty. Is we're essentially killing somebody as a deterrent for other people not to kill somebody. So
I think this is about the methodology, though, right, Senator?
That's right, and it's really come about because the federal government has really been pushing us for alternative forms to lethal injection, because the dosage for the lethal injection, the one dosage is $900,000, and most of that has to do with
one dosage is $900,000. How is that possible?
Liability, and the concern for folks who think that the death penalty is wrong, and so that just drives the cost of liability. If something goes wrong when the lethal injection is administered, and all the things that can happen with that, and the liability that the company would stand to lose. But
is it possible that things might go wrong with shooting?
Well,
an
absolutely,
inmate?
absolutely. I'm not a big proponent of death by firing squad either. But the federal government is really pushing us because of the cost of lethal injection, and they're trying to find a way for us to resolve the issue, because death penalty cases and the death penalty itself is carried out at Terre Haute at the federal prison typically, and the federal government likes to say that they complied and did it with the methods allowed by Indiana law and the federal law. And so they want a method that is approved by us if they want to use firing squad.
Right.
That doesn't mean that we have to do it. And right now I'm thinking, I don't want us to do that.
Right.
It just seems inhumane and too many other risks involved, and you can't tell me that it's not painful at some point.
No, it seems like a part of our past that we've left behind. SB 21, making the breaded pork tenderloin the official sandwich of Indiana. Thoughts?
Well, our Northeast Indiana delegation colleague, former colleague now, Senator Andy Zay, has offered it the last couple of years. While the tenderloin is great in Huntington, and I appreciate that, I think there are other legislators around the state that may have different ideas on what our official sandwich should be.
Well, I think that some folks will say, do we have anything better to do?
Right. Well, here's one. There's another text inquiry that came in, and this is they just have a headline about prices at the store. What are you doing about the high prices at the stores? Okay, that's macroeconomic issues. What are we doing? What can we do?
Yeah, sure. It's it is tough as legislators. I think that people expect that we can do anything about everything. And one idea that has been floated by one of my colleagues in the House, Representative Mitch Gore, from Indianapolis, from Beech Grove, is to really take a look at price gouging at grocery stores. We saw that during COVID, where prices naturally went up because of the circumstances, but then they never came down.
Yeah.
And so I think we've got a bill to take a look at that, and hopefully we'll see if that moves.
So many of those issues have to do with federal policy, energy, what's allowed for us to do for the FDA. And I think really we just were somewhat victimized by the federal government many times by rule and regulation at the federal level.
Well, we've run up against our time here. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here today. Session is just getting started, right? Yes. A lot to do.
It's going to be over with before we know it.
You think so? It's going to fly by? All right. Well, we thank you for being here tonight. And thank you for watching. I'm Ed Leon. We'll see you next time on Prime Time.
The preceding program on PBS Fort Wayne was made possible in part by
the Regional Chamber of Northeast Indiana advocates for world-class infrastructure, a competitive business climate, 21st century talent, and rural investment. One region, one voice. NEINadvocates.com. The Rogers Company has been conducting business in Northeast Indiana since 1944 as Rogers Markets and now as the Rogers Company with commercial property and real estate development. Pleased to support local not-for-profits and PBS Fort Wayne.
Funding for Prime Time on PBS Fort Wayne is provided by the First Source Foundation and the Knight Foundation.